What's up, guys? Welcome back to Sit Down with Sid Podcast. This is season two, episode number 7. Our guest today is an American born, award winning actor and filmmaker from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He won the Best Actor at the COLFF Film Festival for his role in The 12th Letter and is also known for films such as Sandman, Checkmate, Before the Border, The Boonies, The Dark Knight Rises, and many more. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome James Quinn. Hi, James.
Hey, Sid, how are you?
I'm doing great. So thank you very much for being a guest on our podcast. I know you're a busy person, so we appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks for the invite. I appreciate it.
Great. So James, before we kind of get into this podcast, would you mind taking a moment, to give our audience a little bit of background about yourself and so forth?
Yeah, sure. Like as you stated, I'm an actor from the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, American born. Uh, I was acting as a kid in like the late '80s, early '90s. Got away from it from a long time, and I got back into it over the last 15 or so years, and I've been making a great go of it. Things have changed now, so I'm having a great time in the business. But aside from that, I have a background in other things like safety and construction. Done a lot of other things in my life. Worked in the ice hockey rinks for a long time because I was an ice hockey player, amateur boxing background. I love to read and write and take walks on a trail, work out, hang out with my family. Kind of a jack of all trades, I guess. I like to keep busy.
I love that. So let me ask you now, how did the love for acting came about? Was this your first choice as a career or something you felt later down the line in your life? Give us a little bit more insight into this.
Yeah, I believe it was my first love is what I wanted to do. I was talking to a friend the other day about it, and I got engulfed in 1985 as a kid when I saw Back to the Future for the first time.
Hmm.
That's my favorite franchise in film, and I just it really just drew me into where I knew that someday I wanted to do that. It took me a long time to figure out how to do that. So I did a lot of other things along the way to get to this point. So, like I said, I had a background in construction and safety and in the rink industry and in sales as well. So I've done a lot of things to get here, but this is what I've always wanted to do, and I'm just glad that I found my way here.
I love that. So now, I mean, since this was your first love, I mean, who was one of your top actors who you would consider as a role model, inspiration? You want to be like them?
Well, I got a couple, but if I'm going to narrow it down to one, I'm going to go with Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton, also Pittsburgh native, and I just seen everything that he did from our town, and if I was going to model myself after somebody, it would be after Michael Keaton. Just the way he delivers himself. It's not just about the roles he takes on. It's body language, facial expressions. His deliveries are very, very unique, and the fact that he's from Pittsburgh just makes it that much more special to me.
Great story. Now,
And he's still the best Batman. Just wanted to put that out there.
definitely, I've actually watched that. It's pretty fascinating, his acting. Um, so I know I mentioned as well that you won the best actor, for your role in the 12th letter. Did you expect that, or were you like kind of amazed, or like were you expecting to be the best actor?
No, I was not expecting it at all because there was a lot of competition, and so we were just hopeful that we would get our message out there, and it was about the veterans battle and PTSD and the things that were happening in that story, and so what we really wanted to do was just kind of help raise awareness, and it just so happened that we had a great story. It was based off the book by Jackie Havorka, the 12th Letter that's getting ready to come out, so we made the movie to go with it, and we had a wonderful cast, and I just didn't know that where I'd fall into that. The fact that people were looking at it the way they did, I actually just won a second best actor, and I'm just just taken
Oh,
back
that's
by it all.
great.
So it's a great feeling. It's not something I expected. You're always hopeful that that these things might come, but it finally did. And it feels really good.
Now, do you travel a lot to like LA West Coast, or are you solely like all the shootings are mostly on the East Coast?
A lot of mine have been on the East Coast. Now I do go to the West Coast on occasion when the project's right and the situation's right. It's easier for me to navigate the East Coast. I know the area up and down pretty well, so I mean I can go from New York to Pittsburgh to the Carolinas to Florida. And I just know that whole stretch, and I know the scene a little better. LA's a big market. I love any
Hmm.
chance I get to go there. But it is a very big market. But I want to get to the West Coast more and more. That's one of my goals here, and in the coming year or so.
The reason I asked you, I actually came here. from overseas. I've been here for 16, 17 years. And when we talk about Hollywood, Los Angeles is what comes to our mind, not the New York
Right.
City. I mean, New York City, I'm based in New York City. I mean, it's, more for theaters, that kind of performances. But once again,
Right.
that's why I ask you, like, do you travel a lot, or, if you're solely on the East Coast? So tell me one thing, James. Now, tell me, how does the audition process work? I know there are auditionings like day and night, nonstop. These production companies looking for new talent. Give us a little bit insight about the auditioning process for you as well, and how challenging is it, or do you consider it like a smooth sailing for you?
It can be a challenge. It's first off, these most of the time you got to wait to get the audition from your agent, unless somebody's reaching out to you word of mouth that knew you and
Hmm.
somebody threw in a word for you somewhere, which that does happen on occasion, and that's great. But so a lot of things changed during COVID, and I think they're here to stay now. So you're not really showing up in the audition room anymore. Wherever the casting company is, you're doing self tape auditions from home a lot of the time, or from wherever you can be conveniently located. So you're not only are you showcasing yourself as an actor, you're also a private filmmaker. You're doing your own lighting, you're setting up your own camera work just to make sure everything looks perfect. So it's made it a little bit more difficult, fun in a good way, and challenging for the actor. But now you have to make sure everything's right, as opposed to just studying your lines and showing up for the audition. So, but I think it's making people more rounded filmmakers and actors now, because they have to learn how to do these things themselves. Um,
So let me ask you now. I know you said like a lot of people have been doing like self casting, taping themselves. Doesn't that take away from the performance pressure that you have to perform per se, in front of the production, who's looking for casting? I mean, doing it yourself, or your friend helping, family member helping you, versus you doing in person, is two different things. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, they're very different. But see, now when you're doing your own tapes, and I speak solely for myself, you can get in your own head a little bit, and you can
Hmm.
be unhappy with that take, and you want to do another. And the next thing you know, you just took 12 takes, and you're hoping it's the right one, and you're going through them all. You're kind of stuck in the moment when you are in the audition room. And me personally, I still prefer to be in the audition room. I feel I sell myself better in person, and there's less getting in your head. You just whatever leads up to it. You get in the room, you see everybody, you shake a hand, you look them in the eyes, and then you just get right down to it. You get one crack at it. Here, I think sometimes you have a chance to make it perfect, but you can also get in your head and make things a little more difficult. Just depends on the person, I think.
Amazing. So I also know that you're a writer as well as a producer as well, besides being an actor. Uh, Talk us the process. I mean, when you're an actor, it's a completely different experience, different kind of performance laid out by an actor like yourself, versus once you're a writer, producer, and a director. Give me the contrast of both roles. Which one do you prefer more? The cons and the pros. If you don't mind.
No, 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 not at all. So I really my favorite always and always will be is acting. That's my first love.
Hmm.
But if I have a second, it's writing. And now that I get to do the two of them together, it it really is something special, because you're creating some of your own storylines, some of your own characters. You're bringing to life what you saw in your head first. It's making us more rounded in the person as an actor, because not only are you just thinking as an actor, now you're thinking, excuse me, as a writer, a
Hmm.
producer, a director. So you're wearing all these hats. It's just like you should learn how to be a production assistant, and how to direct, and how to be an AD, just so you realize how all these pieces are put together. And I think it makes you a better actor, especially for me, with it being my first love, because
Hmm.
now you know exactly what a production assistant deals with from day to day. You know what's going through the writer's mind, and how often they have to tear up scripts and make changes to a script on a daily basis. So
Hmm.
I think it just really, and the same goes for, somebody that's a writer that's going to try acting too. It's the same way. Now you're thinking from both sides of the fence. And I think that's really good, actually.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think you have also acted in some of the scripts that you have written as well.
I have, yes. Yeah.
Isn't that too like demanding on your own self? I mean, like, you're trying to outperform your own self. Like, hey, as you said, I can be better every single take. Give me. I'm very kind of intrigued by this. Give me a little bit more,
Sure.
on this.
Yeah, I mean, you can be because so Sandman was a film that I took around. It was a boxing film we did that I wrote, and I was a lead actor and a producer on. But it was very personal to me because a lot of this actually happened in my own life. So I was very meticulous and very driven, but it had to be a certain way, and I think I just really rode myself hard to make that happen to where I would
Hmm.
make changes. I was talking to somebody about it not long ago again, and I said I tore it apart. I don't know how many times over the course of a year, the script, because I wasn't happy because it had to be just right because I was reliving some things that I went through.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's a heck of an experience, but I think we can be real hard on ourselves when we do the writing. I think you hit the nail on the head there because you have an expectation in your mind that
Right.
you have to meet or exceed.
And now talking about Sandman, you said it was more based on your own personal story. Now, how challenging it is for you as an actor if you are an introvert trying to expose your personal life to this mass audience. I'm sure this must go through in your mind as well. Um, Tell me more about that.
Yeah, and it can, and like, it's probably case sensitive, but you have to be open to it. And in a way, for
Hmm.
me, it was good because I got to exercise a few demons, for lack of a better term, get some things off my chest that have been weighing on me for a few years, and some personal things. And I guess you don't really know how you're going to deal with it until you see how people react to it. In this case, it went well. I think it did very well in the festivals, and we had to play on local television. It's out there for
Hmm.
everybody to see. It's been traveling for a few years now. But you have so many expectations on it yourself that you just don't know what's going to happen until it does.
And is that, if I was to say, if that's one of the best roles that you've ever played till date, is that the one, Sandman?
Yeah, I got it. I got a cross between the two because the 12th letter, I won the two best actor awards. I love playing Trey Reynolds, and we're actually going to get back to that character again too soon. But I'd say because if I had to narrow it down to one, I'm going to go with Grady Sanders and Sandman because of how close I was to it. And the best way I can answer it is it's probably as close as I'll ever come to playing myself.
And did that change you some way as a person once you saw that the feedback was appreciated by the mass audience once they saw Sandman?
It was because I went through a lot of struggle early on, and a lot of that was shown in this film for real. And once I saw how people took to it, it was kind of vindicating. It was a good feeling.
So now for upcoming youth, talent who want to become an actor, you know, I mean, listen, everybody says, "Hey, I want to be an actor." I mean, we have Robert De Niro. He's one of my favorite actors till date. I never missed this movie, and he lives in Tribeca here in New York City. So it's like, you know what? I also want to become an actor. So for the people, for the young talent who is going to listen to this or are listening to this, tell them the real expectations they should have. Give them a little bit of a reality check. How does that work?
Absolutely. So I say make sure you want it because there's a lot involved. Um, there's a lot of rejection in the business. So
Hmm.
always, always, always have a side hustle. Always have some other kind of job or something going on just to cover yourself to get by because you're going to need it. It's going to take
Hmm.
a lot of struggle early on. Just getting yourself out there, meeting people, finding your way onto sets, and finding out where the auditions are. And the rejection levels are very high, even for somebody that's been around a long time. Nobody gets told yes every day, and you have to be okay with that. That's all part of it. And what makes it all worth it is for the times you do get that yes because you worked your butt off and somebody liked something that you did and you get that phone call. And that's the motivation you take into your next role or your next audition is the fact that excuse me, you're coming by with all that momentum now. And it's just something you got to make sure you want it. You got to be ready to. Don't be afraid to fall either. Take the chance. If you don't take the chance, somebody else will. So don't be afraid of embarrassing yourself. We all do it. Just get out there and give everything you got, and you're gonna fall. That's okay. The key is getting back up and you keep coming. And you might listen. It might take you 100 auditions to get a part, but if you have it in your mind that this is what you want to do, you eventually will get it, and you will go to great places. Man, it just takes time. You have to be patient in this business.
See, that's a great advice coming from this is your wisdom talking, being in the business,
Oh,
for so long. So now, James, I
thank you.
also want to talk about the criticism aspect. Now, I'm sure, not everyone loves everyone, right? There is always someone who will criticize us at any point, no matter how good
Oh,
we are, right?
no doubt.
How do you deal with criticism? Do you take it as a constructive criticism, or does it they knock you out a little bit for a bit and then you try to get back up? Like, what's your, I'm more curious to understand your mindset. For example, if I'm a young talent, I'm like, you know what, James, you're my role model. I want to get in this industry. You just told me this, but I want to put myself in your shoes. Tell me, talk me through that journey.
Criticism's good, I think, but it depends on where it comes from. For me, if it's coming from somebody that's been there,
Mm-hmm.
somebody that has, a much larger resume than myself, then I'm all ears. I'm open to it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of bad criticism out there, and I don't personally read a lot of reviews just because of that. Because I
Okay.
like to say, and it's good to stay in a positive mindset. But if you're getting the criticism and the feedback from like-minded people, people that you're working around, people you respect in the industry, or friends and
Mm-hmm.
family that respect you, not all their criticism is going to be good, but at least it's somewhere that it's coming from a good place. So if it's criticism where it's coming from a good place and from somebody you respect, or then take it all in and absorb it, and learn from it. But if it's coming from somebody that has never been there, then it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of something you have to take with a grain of salt. And fans, they have the right to boo, they have the right to cheer. That's what it's there for. That's why we do this. And so I don't tell anybody what they can do. And that's if they want to say, hey, I hate every film you ever made, that's their right to do so. But it's also your right to not hear it, because what their opinion of you is none of your business. That's the best way I can put it.
Okay. Um, Now I know you're working on some few projects. Do you want to give us a little bit insight into some of your few projects that are coming out, and where can the people stream those, and launch date, etc., if you have any information on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the ones that are out, or for the most part, are out there right now. Like Checkmate is out on Tubi and Prime Video.
Mm-hmm.
You'd mentioned Before the Border, that's out
Yes.
there. That's on Prime Video and PureFlix and a few
Mm-hmm.
other sites that I'm unaware of, but I know they're out there. A lot of them are on DVD. The Boonies did really well, and that is, I believe, on Prime Video right now. It might be heading to Tubi as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a lot that it's good. I have a film called The Paranauts coming out. We don't know where that's going to be streaming yet. We're just waiting for, we're in the post production stages. And my current project that I'm working on right
Mm-hmm.
now is called Strange Angels. We're in pre-production, so that hasn't happened. That's going to be based off the Ernest Kagan novel Strange Angels, but
Mm-hmm.
also another boxing premise. I'll be playing the head trainer, but it takes place in current times, but it has a very strong film noir vibe to it, and like, to me, that's going to be a lot of fun, like a big old school crime drama. But we're turning it into a series, and there's a lot of really cool events that take place throughout. Right now we're deciding whether we want to do it in color or black and white, and we don't want to limit ourselves, so it may end up
Mm-hmm.
being a neo noir. So these are decisions we're making on that right now. But we're actually casting for that this weekend. We're going to do our final stages of casting, and then moving
Okay.
forward.
So give us a time frame from, for example, now you are a writer, right? You're writing this script. Can you give us a time frame from the moment you start writing a script versus the moment a movie is launched? Just a rough, timeline for us to understand. Hey, this is, if you're doing a 2 hour, 90-minute movie that we watch, say on Netflix or Prime Video, how much work goes in there in terms of time frame, just on an
Oh,
average?
a lot. So you figure your average feature film, independent or Hollywood, is going to be at least a year to a year and a half to come out. That's
Wow.
from the time you start filming it to post production to getting it out there. So you
Wow.
could tack on another 6 months to a year in the writing stages on top of that. So there's a lot of work. I have feature films like we were talking about Checkmate. I think it took
Right.
3 years. So some of these films, they do, there's so much involved from start to finish because whether it's budget or the writing process or whatever the case might be, it's going to the film festival circuit. So a lot of films are doing that too now. So they finish the post production and then they go and they do the film festival circuit for a year or so, and then they go to distribution. So sometimes it is a process, but I'd say you're looking at about a good strong year and a half, start to finish minimum.
Wow. So as an actor, is that detrimental to your performance over the period of 18 months, or uh, you just go with the flow?
No, would you go with the flow, man? We're anxious like anybody else, just like the fans. We want to see them come out, but it's all part of the process. I think once you do a few, you realize, okay, it's going to be a little while till I see this. So you just try to stay focused on each role that you're doing, and so you might do 3, 4, maybe 6, 7 roles before that project comes out. In between, Then the key is trying to remember all the fun stuff that took place behind the scenes by the time it does come out. You're like, oh yeah, wait a minute, I forgot about that. And so then trying to remember the whole movie yourself, right? Because you might be in some cases you might be 12 films later and a couple commercials removed from that, and you're like, oh, what just happened here? Okay, oh yeah, I remember now. So it's a process, but it's all part of the business. As long as, again, patience is key with this business always.
Okay. And then I know, I mean, I have read somewhere, correct me if I'm wrong, like once you play a role for so long, you kind of become one. Do I make sense here? Like, I mean, I have read stories of actors, people who have played certain roles, they submerge themselves in that role, you know. Is that true or is that a myth?
No, well, again, it depends on the actor and the actor's style, but yeah, I mean, I think a
I
lot
want
of
to talk
actors,
about yourself personally. Like, was there
myself
any?
personally,
Yes.
yes, it has happened. There's been times, whether it's a feature film or a series, whenever you spend an extended period of time studying somebody, you do become that person, right? And so to a degree, and you have a little bit of a hard time washing that side of you away for a while. There was, in fact, when we did Checkmate, I'm going back to that again. I had to use an Irish
Right.
accent for at least half of the movie. They wanted me to change my accent all the time. And for months after that, because we were on there so long, I would walk
Hmm.
around the house and it would come out in an Irish accent. And my wife would say, what are you doing? I'm like, it's just a force of habit,
Right.
and you don't even realize you're doing it because you're still there. So yeah. And sometimes for some people, you have to go into a really dark place for a dark role. And then that takes a little while to come back and get your mind right because you really had to go somewhere you didn't want to go. So yeah, there's been a couple times where I think where I stayed a little longer than I probably needed to with the character. But in some ways, I think that's great because I should show in your performance. It should reflect in that performance. When people
Hmm.
get to see it, they're going to say, "Hey, you know what? I believe that. That's believable. I'd watch that." That's the reaction you want.
Right. Uh, I want to talk about The Dark Knight Rises. How did you end up getting a role in that movie, in that production?
So it's not as big a role as one might think, but I was just so happy to be there because that was my first gig when I came back. Was The Dark Knight Rises. It was a
Oh,
great time.
wow.
I was on that set. So I actually had to stand in line with, I think it was 2,000 people waiting to audition, waiting to get in for the casting call, just to hope that they would see you. And we were there for hours. So at that point, I'm like, I don't even know if I'm ever going to hear from these guys. And about 6 days later, I got a phone call. Hey, we're going to need you in Gotham City, which was Oakland here in Pittsburgh.
Hmm.
Um, to be a Gothamite, you're going to be part of our fight scene. So it wasn't an extravagant role, but I was so happy to be a part of Batman and Gotham City and The Dark Knight Rises. Where Christopher Nolan did such a fantastic job that it was such a big deal to me to be there. It's such a great memory because it was kind of what set things off in the right direction for me. But it was
Yeah,
it was
that's
a
what I
really
was
really
going to
good
say.
time.
So now, James, a couple of things before we wrap this up. Any dream filmmaker you would like to work with, you look forward to, like, what, in my acting career, if I want to cement my legacy, this was the filmmaker I wanted to work with, or this is the filmmaker I work
Yeah, so I did get to work with one of them again with Christopher Nolan, but the one that I haven't that I would love to work with would be Ron Howard.
with. Okay.
I think he's got a brilliant mind for the business, and it would be an absolute honor just to stand there and see how things go in his mind.
And then personally, like, if you want to reach out to them, is it your agent kind of tries to navigate communication channels between yourself and, for example, if you want to work with this gentleman?
Yeah, well, first, I mean, there has to be a project, right? So then the agency would look into it and say, okay, let's see if there's anything you might fit, and then we'll reach out to their people. They wouldn't obviously reach out to Ron directly, but they would reach out to the production company and go, hey, I got this guy. How about taking a look at them? And they're either going to say yeah or no. But without the agency doing that, it's very hard for them to even to get that look at you. So if you got an agent that's working hard for you,
Hmm.
that's key too. And then you have to do your part when it comes time to get in that door and then do that audition or do that read with everyone. You got to win them over. But at least if you have a good agent working for you, that's a big factor.
Amazing. James, I'm going to put a spotlight on you for this question, okay?
Okay.
Is James Quinn a good actor or a great actor? And what
Ooh.
sets a good actor apart from a great actor?
I would say right now he is a good actor that aspires to be a great actor because even though I've had some wonderful roles in my career and I've been very fortunate, I
Hmm.
still believe my best work is yet to come, and I think every actor should have that mindset. I believe that my best is around the corner for me to become great. I have to get there, and that gives me something. I think Matthew McConaughey said it best. It gives you something to chase. You're never going to get
Right.
exactly where you want to be, but you're always chasing it. And I think my aspiration is to become that great actor.
And then once you go for these auditions and you get selected, um, do you have a moment to reflect on your own self, like, this is the reason why I got this, why I beat these 2,000 people to get this role of Gothamite in the Dark Knight?
Yeah, I think later on down the road you see it. I think at first you're just caught up in the moment, but I think once you have a dozen years under your belt and you start looking back and reflecting on your career a little bit, and you're going, okay, you know what, I must have really had something there. But you also seen how far you came from point A to point Z, right? They're like, I had something then, but I really have something now. But I think later on you can savor it more once you feel that you've accomplished a little more in your career.
Great. Now, James, for people who want to find you, would you mind sharing, where people can find you on Facebook, Instagram, and also we will be putting all this information in the description of the video as well, so people can reach out to you.
Fantastic. Yeah. So all my social media is at Real James Quinn. That'd be Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, a little bit of TikTok. So you can find me on all those fronts. I'm on YouTube as well. So just reach out. I'm on Twitter a lot. Twitter and Instagram probably more than anything, and I do tweet a lot. I get a lot of DMs, so I can't always get back to all of them, but I do my best to answer. I love to interact with people, whether it's a
Hmm.
fan or an aspiring actor. I do my best to try to answer your questions, as long as they're cordial. I try to respond to all. So do interact with me because I enjoy it.
Great. James, any closing statement from your end before we wrap this up? The mic is yours.
Well, actually, I just want to thank you, Sid, for giving me this floor today in front of your audience and getting the opportunity to talk about the business because I really love to do that. And you're in one of my favorite places in New York, right? So that's been a real big thrill to have me on the show here for you. So thanks for having me, man.
Well, thanks, James. It's been a pleasure. I know we are on a very time crunch, so I won't take much of your time anymore. All I can say is it was great interacting with you. You have a very, very natural personality of being comfortable in front of public. I can sense that. I can feel that energy from your end. It's just natural. So I guess that's why you were born to be an actor.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. In my book, I've had to work a little bit toward it, but it does feel a lot more comfortable and natural now. So thank you for saying so.
No problem. Thank you, James, for your time. We want to wish you all the very best for your future endeavors, and we look forward to having you soon again in our next season.
Thanks, Sid. My pleasure. You take care.
Thank you. Bye bye. Take care. Bye bye.